He walked in like any other father, holding his son's wheelchair with one hand and his wife's hand with the other. No designer clothes, no loud entrance. Just love, humility, and quiet strength. But within minutes, a waiter humiliated him in front of everyone. Why? Because he looked poor. What the waiter didn't know was that this quiet man owned the very building they were standing in. And what happened next changed the lives of everyone in that room forever. It was a chilly Saturday evening. The sun was slowly sinking, casting a golden glow over the city skyline. Cars lined the street, music floated from nearby cafes, and people strolled hand in hand, laughing, living, just being human. But inside one particular restaurant, an elegant, luxurious place with golden chandeliers and velvet chairs, a different kind of story was about to unfold. Marcus Bennett adjusted the collar of his worn coat. It wasn't designer or flashy, just neat and clean. His wife, Angela, stood beside him in a simple but beautiful dress. Their daughter, Melody, clung to Angela's hand, her eyes wide with wonder. This was their first time entering such a fancy restaurant together, and it wasn't just for dinner. It was a celebration. Marcus had made a silent promise to himself. Years ago, when he had nothing, he told Angela, "One day, I'll take you and our daughter to a place like this. Not because I need to prove anything, but because you deserve it." Today was that day. Quietly, with no social media posts, no loud declarations. Just a man keeping a promise. They walked into the restaurant, eyes catching the sparkle of the chandelier above. Waiters in black suits moved gracefully. The sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz filled the air. Heads turned, not because of fame, but because Marcus didn't look like the usual guest. He wasn't dressed in a tailored suit, and his hands, rough from work, held years of quiet labor. A tall, sharp-looking waiter with slicked-back hair noticed them. His name tag read Derek. He approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Are you lost?" he asked, glancing at Marcus's coat and shoes. "No," Marcus replied calmly. "We have a reservation." Marcus Bennett. Derek paused, then faked a small laugh. "Ah, of course." He led them toward a table near the window. Other diners glanced their way, some with curiosity, others with amusement. Marcus helped Angela into her chair, then gently seated Melody. He looked around, absorbing the moment. He wasn't there to impress anyone, just to enjoy this quiet victory with the two people who stood by him when he had nothing. But Derek had other plans. Moments later, as they waited for water to be served, Derek returned. But instead of carefully pouring the water into their glasses, he accidentally tilted the pitcher. A full splash of cold ice water spilled all over Marcus's suit jacket and lap. Gasps rose from nearby tables. "Oh," Derek said with mock concern. "My hand slipped." Angela's eyes widened in shock. Melody let out a small cry. Marcus sat still, drenched and freezing. The water soaked through his jacket, dripping onto the polished floor. But Marcus didn't shout. He didn't flinch. He simply looked up at Derek with calm eyes. Derek smirked and walked away, pretending to fetch napkins. Silence fell over the room. Some diners whispered, "Why is he not saying anything?" Others shook their heads in disapproval, but no one said a word aloud. They all watched, as if it were a scene in a movie. Angela reached for a napkin and gently patted Marcus's sleeve. "We can leave," she whispered. "Let's just go." But Marcus shook his head softly. "No, not yet." A manager, a well-dressed man with graying hair and alert eyes, stepped forward. He had seen the entire scene unfold from the bar. "Is everything all right here?" the manager asked. Marcus stood slowly, water still dripping from his sleeve. His voice was soft but steady. "Is this how your staff treats guests?" he asked. The manager looked stunned. "Sir, I deeply apologize." Derek will be spoken to immediately. Derek returned just then with a towel in hand, still smirking. Maybe next time, don't dress like a janitor, he muttered under his breath, but loud enough for the table next to them to hear. The room froze, but Marcus just smiled. That was the moment everything began to shift. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple white card. He handed it to the manager, who read the gold print carefully. His eyes widened. He read it again to be sure. The name printed on the card was Marcus Bennett, founder and CEO, Bennett Hospitality Group, owner, the Bennett restaurant chain, including this very one. The manager's face went pale. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Derek, curious, peeked over the manager's shoulder. And then, his smirk vanished. Everyone around them, waiters, customers, the bartender, began to realize who Marcus truly was. This wasn't a poor man sneaking into a fancy restaurant. This was the Marcus Bennett, the man who had started as a dishwasher in this city 15 years ago. The man who built his empire one meal at a time, one sleepless night after another. The very man whose name was etched in gold outside the restaurant's entrance. But no one had connected the dots. Because Marcus wasn't wearing a suit. Because he didn't walk in with pride, but with peace. Because real success doesn't always need to shout. The manager looked at Marcus with trembling hands. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Please allow me to personally." Marcus raised his hand gently to stop him. "Please don't make a scene." He turned to Angela and smiled. "Honey, let's enjoy our dinner. It's been a long time coming." He sat back down, water-soaked and calm. The manager offered fresh clothes, a private table, anything they wanted. Marcus shook his head. "We came to eat like everyone else. That's all." Derek stood still, his face drained of color. He looked around, but no one would meet his eyes anymore. Marcus picked up the menu calmly, helped Melody choose her meal, and continued the evening as if nothing happened. But something had happened. The entire restaurant stood frozen. People who had once giggled or whispered behind napkins now stared like statues. Derek, the arrogant waiter, blinked rapidly, still not understanding what had just happened. He looked down at the business card in his hand, the one Marcus had quietly handed him, and his smirk slowly began to fade. It was black, with gold lettering. Clean, classy, powerful. Marcus Bennett, founder, Bennett Culinary Group. In the middle of the card was the name of the man he had just drenched with cold water. The man he laughed at. The man he treated like garbage. Marcus Bennett wasn't just anyone. He owned this restaurant, and over 50 more across the country. The manager, Mr. Harris, stepped forward, sweating nervously. "Sir, Mr. Bennett, I am terribly sorry. We didn't know. If I had known." Marcus raised one hand gently, silencing him. "It's okay," Marcus said calmly. "You don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." His wife, Sarah, watched with tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from pride. Their daughter, little Ava, clung to her dad's leg, not fully understanding what was going on, but knowing she was safe beside him. Marcus looked back at Derek, whose hands were now shaking. "You laughed at me," Marcus said softly, "because of how I was dressed, because of where I come from, because I didn't look like someone who belonged here." Derek's lips parted, but no words came out. Marcus took a deep breath and looked around the room. "You judged me because I didn't wear a suit, because I didn't walk in here like I owned the place." He paused. "But I do own the place." The silence was thick. No one dared to move. Then, Marcus did something no one expected. He pulled out his phone and showed Derek a picture. A worn-down little food truck from 10 years ago. "This was my first restaurant," he said. "Just a trailer, some pans, and a lot of hope." People leaned forward. Some lowered their phones, realizing this wasn't a moment for clout. It was a moment for learning. I used to sleep in that truck, cook all day, deliver orders at night. I didn't have a big name, no investors, just grit. He turned to the staff, and then to the other customers. I've served thousands of people, rich and poor, celebrities, politicians, teachers, janitors, farmers. I treated them all the same, with respect. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear. But Marcus didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't demand punishment. Instead, he looked at the manager. He stays. What? Derek whispered. Mr. Harris looked confused too. Sir? You want him to stay? Yes, Marcus replied. But only if he agrees to go through 2 weeks of humility training. He'll start from the kitchen, washing dishes, cleaning the floors, learning what it means to serve, not just carry a tray. Derek's mouth opened again, but nothing came out. Or, Marcus continued, he can walk out. That's his choice. For the first time, Derek lowered his head. I'll stay, he whispered. I didn't know. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Marcus nodded. Then, he turned to his wife and daughter. Let's go home. They walked out together, hand in hand, heads held high. They didn't wait for applause or praise. They didn't need it. They had already won. Outside, as the cool evening breeze touched their faces, Sarah looked at her husband. You could have fired him, she said gently. I know, Marcus said, but I'd rather teach him. That's how we change people. And what about the others? She asked. They'll remember today, he smiled. Not because a rich man showed off, but because a man showed grace. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. You're more than just the owner of a restaurant. He smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, No, I'm just a man who didn't forget where he came from. And with that, they walked to their car, quietly leaving behind a room full of people who had just witnessed something more powerful than revenge, respect in action.